CD Projekt Red, we love them. They've been kicking goals ever since the game released. Am I right, guys?
That's a beautiful ball onto Vedmar. Turning inside, is he gonna let flies him? He scored! Vedmar!
Now the game's been out for about 4 months now. So some people have already played the buggy mess at launch, some people are playing it now, and some are waiting for the game to be completely fixed in general before they actually play the game at all. But regardless if you've played the game or not, or if you're still waiting to play the game, today, CD Projekt Red released a strategy video detailing what they're going to do in the future for CD Projekt Red, Cyberpunk, Witcher, and one thing they spoke about was the lack of future plans for their multiplayer in Cyberpunk 2077. Exciting times, am I right, guys? All this and more after the drop. Okay, so I kind of spoiled the entire video before the drop with the whole multiplayer thing, but that's what we're talking about today. It's in the thumbnail anyway, but you watch because you love me, guys.
It's free real estate.
Now, we don't need to go into the whole ups and downs of the whole saga of Cyberpunk 2077. A lot of you already know what's going on here. You haven't come here just for the memes and for me to show you buggy clips of the whole launch and how terrible it was. In the months that's followed with Cyberpunk's release, now the team has been working relatively hard here to try and get this game to an actual working state, especially on consoles. Now they've also said that there's going to be multiple patches coming along the way. One actually came out yesterday, a total of 32 gigabytes in total, with a host of different changes and fixes to try and make the whole experience a lot better. The thing is though, it only released in the last 24 to 48 hours or so it's going to be hard to know how much of that has actually been fixed. We're going to have to wait a little bit longer to hear the general consensus of the audience, because I haven't played the new patches yet to see if this is actually worth playing. But I know a lot of people are still waiting for that day they can jump onto a base console and play CD Projekt Red, play Cyberpunk 2077. I don't think it's really ever going to happen though, to be honest. I think it's never going to be fully playable on a base console. That's my take though. But as they release this large patch, with the same breath pretty much, they've come out and said that multiplayer for Cyberpunk 2077 isn't really a thing anymore. It honestly feels like, you know, the Friday news dump where they put all the crappy news, you know, bundled up at the end of the week. It's like, hey, we got this gigantic patch, guys. It's going to be amazing. Cyberpunk's going to be amazing. There's no longer a multiplayer, but it doesn't matter. It's going to be so good. Check out the new patch. That's literally what it feels like. It just feels so timed, so strategically timed for us to maybe not notice it, especially when the announcement came at the very end, pretty much, of the video that they released yesterday with the whole strategy going forward with Cyberpunk.
Previously, we hinted that our next AAA would be a multiplayer Cyberpunk game, but we have decided to reconsider this plan. Given our new, more systematic and agile approach, instead of primarily focusing on one big online experience or game, we are focusing on bringing online into all of our franchises one day.
Now look, I know people are going to be pissed, and rightfully so. Alright, I understand why people are going to be pissed about this. But let's unpack this for a second. Number one, they said that they hinted at a multiplayer. They did not hint. I really feel like that was a lot more than a hint. We're talking about monetization structures. We're talking about it being a standalone product. We spoke about it coming, you know, later on in the piece. It was not going to be released with the game, but it was certainly going to come along later down the track. This wasn't hinted at. This wasn't some developer that accidentally said something halfway through an interview and that's how it got out. It was quite deliberate, the amount of information that we were learning along the way about multiplayer. And the conversations and the information that they were telling us about the multiplayer says to me that development was probably coming along, or at the very least they felt very confident about this, that they wanted to have an open dialogue with us about it. But here's the other thing. They did not anticipate this launch going so horrendously bad, so catastrophically bad for them, that their entire brand and reputation was called into question. So everything that they did from top to bottom had to be rethought. Like, they went back to the drawing board in so many ways. But let's be clear here, we're not making excuses for them. They messed up, and they absolutely deserve all the bad press they got. What we're really trying to do is figure out how they're thinking and why they've come to the conclusion of not doing multiplayer anymore, or at least putting it on the back burner for the foreseeable future. And to me, I think they've probably realized that they have so much on their plate now, so much to rethink, that the idea of also releasing a multiplayer now just adds too much on their plate, and they may want to just revisit that later down the track. I also feel like, although I really wanted a multiplayer, games get cancelled sometimes. I mean, that's just part of making games and part of the creative process. Sometimes things do not get released. Even when they're like kind of in development or really kind of chugging along, sometimes they don't work out for so many reasons.
Oh my God.
And here's another thing that I'm actually quite torn about. We didn't pay for a multiplayer. They ultimately promised the multiplayer as a separate thing. The single player was its own complete experience, lol, if you can even say that. The fact is, it was a buggy mess, but from the get-go, they did say that it was going to be monetized separately, and the single player experience was actually its own contained experience, and that's what you originally paid for. So I don't think that they owe us anything right now in terms of money-wise, because that was never part of the deal. But having said that, they certainly owe us by, for the horrendous game that was actually released upon us. So in that regard, I absolutely do feel like if you're going to release a game like that, promise a multiplayer, and then take it away from us, it'd be a very different situation if the single-player experience was such a smash hit, and it was the greatest game that we had seen last year. But that wasn't the case. It was a buggy mess, a broken mess, and a lot of people felt like CD Projekt Red needed to make it up to them. And now for them to also take away multiplayer, it is going to annoy and piss a lot of people off, because they feel like that was the moment they could make it up to them. It's something that could have gone a long way if it was a really successful multiplayer experience. It would have helped the Cyberpunk brand, and as well, of course, as the CD Projekt Red brand. So in that regard, I'm in kind of two minds there. I do understand from a creative perspective that they need to go back to the drawing board sometimes and figure out things. It's also important to mention that, hey, we may get it in the future though. It may not come now, but it might come in the future based on CD Projekt Red's buying strategy at the moment with companies. Presumably, as part of that process, CD Projekt Red also announced today that it has acquired Digitalscapes, a Canadian studio that specializes in multiplayer game development. Digitalscapes, which has been renamed to CD Projekt Red Vancouver, has been working on Cyberpunk 2077 since October 2018. And while there's no information yet on how the studio's role will change now that it's officially part of the family, it would seem to be a natural fit for CD Projekt Red's expanded multiplayer plans. But what will happen in the future? Will there be a multiplayer? Will there be a Cyberpunk 2078? Will Geralt be in Smash? Have to figure out in the future, guys. We don't know. But until next time, thanks for watching. Love you, appreciate you. Lemon out!